Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Comicpalooza Fight Club 2024, which was a B tier that took place this weekend in Houston, and there was some crazy upsets at this event, and we're going to be going over every single one of them. For your top 16 finishers, you're going to have Davong, Jackarot, EBK, and Anathema in 13th, E-King, Lima, Deathspade, and Shu in 9th, and 7th you got Tilde and BUANDON, 5th is PEABNUT, CAPITANCITO, 4th was PLOOPY, 3rd was LukeWarm, 2nd was Luis, and winning the entire thing was Muteace. So first things first, we got to talk about our top 8 seeds that did not get into the top 8, and usually at a B tier event, it's going to be one, maybe two players, but this time around, you had 3 of them falling early on. The first one is going to be Chag. He ends up losing to E-King in the winner's side and Jackarot in the loser's side, and those are two characters that I would favor Palutena versus, not by like a super significant margin, but I do think she beats Pac-Man. I do think she beats Hero as well, but at least for the Hero matchup in Jackarot, English is not going to be Chag's native language, and he can read English, I'm assuming, but the hero spells aren't really like English. They're kind of just like gobbledygook in the language, so it's definitely going to be tough, especially if it isn't your native language. And maybe Chag has studied a ton, and it actually was not a factor in that set, but I'm going to give him a little bit of credit there and say that's definitely a tough draw, and he ends up getting 17th place. You're going to have Lima finishing in 9th place. He ends up losing to LukeWarm in the winner's side, and we'll talk about that when we talk about him, because that's insane. But in the loser side, he picks up wins on Toasty and EBK before falling to Capitancito, and that is definitely a matchup check. And also Capitancito is like insanely good at this game. He is easily the best Mii Gunner player to ever touch the game. Claw is pretty good as well, but the stuff that Capitancito is doing and the consistency he does it with is pretty incredible, and this is just another amazing win to add to his belt. Again, we'll talk about that when we talk about the top 8, but a 9th place for Lima. Honestly, not the end of the world, not a great placement. You would have expected him to go higher, of course, but it's still not going to be tier. It's nothing to cry about. And the final top 8 seed that did not get top 8 is going to be Shiny Mark, and he was actually the first seed of the entire event, but he ends up getting 33rd, losing to BUANDON in the winner's side, and in the loser's side, he ends up losing to Poogie, and I believe it was a reverse 3-0 on the KROOL, and obviously that's a matchup that Pikachu should be favored in, and I would also favor Pikachu versus Ryu, but at the end of the day, Pikachu is a character with extremely high variance. I think when you're playing Pikachu at his best, he's potentially the best character of the game. It's kind of hard to say that with Steve existing, but when you're not playing Pikachu at his best, he gets significantly worse, because hit for hit, he's losing in pretty much every single aspect of the game. You need to be very smart with your neutral, and you just really can't make a ton of mistakes with this character if you are not playing in perfect form. You're just not going to do super well. So Shiny Mark ends up getting 33rd at this event. Yes, it is unfortunate. Do I think this is going to be a common occurrence? No, not at all. I'm very confident he is going to bounce back at his next event, but this one was just a little rough for him. But also huge props to BUANDON and Poogie for the upsets, because that's pretty insane. And after this next one, we are going to be moving into the top 8, just because this event wasn't super massive. That is where a majority of the juicy stuff ended up happening. So if there's a player that I left out and you want to hear about the run, just leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to tell you how they did, and sub while you're down there. But before we get into the top 8, we got to talk about this loses run from Shu. She ends up losing her second match of the day to this guy and just pops off super hard, winning 6 sets in a row, beating Kane, Graggy, and Atomic to get into that top 32. Once in the top 32, she picks up wins on Skinny the Pooh, Rocky, and Davon before falling to Luis. And she was such an incredible player that I feel like really does not get her flowers, so I'm going to give it to her right now. And Zero Suit is also a character where I really don't know how to feel about her in the current meta of the game, because she honestly does extremely well versus a lot of the super relevant top tier characters. I would favor her versus Steve and Kazuya, as well as Game & Watch. She does pretty good versus Snake, but you also have to consistently outplay your opponent in neutral. Your damage output is just not up to snuff with the current top tiers in this game. So if you're good enough, like Shu was at this tournament, you can get a lot of very solid wins, but you have to be just pretty much better than your opponent to be able to take it over the line, and Shu clearly did that a lot this tournament, so props to her for the run to 9th place. So let's get into this top 8. Our 7th place finishers are going to be BUANDON and Tilde, starting off with BUANDON. As I already mentioned, he gets that huge win over Shiny Mark, which is just so impressive. To be able to beat a player of Shiny Mark's caliber, even if it isn't his best day, is just really good. So shouts to BUANDON for that one. Ends up losing to PLOOPY right after, and it feels like a majority of the time when a player gets a massive upset, especially over the first seed of the event, and they lose the next round, they usually lose their losers match as well, because they're further than they're supposed to be in the bracket. They already got their good win. Maybe they're satisfied, but BUANDON he was not satisfied, because then he beats Beastly, Anathema, and E-King to get into that top 8 before falling to Capitancito. This run was incredible from him as the 33rd seed to get as far as he did. And BUANDON is a player that doesn't go to a ton of stuff. His only major result in 2024 is going to be Genesis, so hopefully we get to see him travel a little bit more after this, because Ryu is not a commonly represented character in anime, really in the world, but they have Osimo in Japan, so I'm not going to just kind of forget about him. You do have Aiken in America, but he doesn't go to a ton of stuff, and you have a lot of Ken players here, but Ken is just like significantly worse than Ryu. I really want to see more Ryu players showing up just so I can start talking about how much better Ryu is, because it's just very evident to me. I don't know why the Ken players are doing so much better, but BUANDON starting to fight back for what is right, and hopefully we get to see more of it from him. And the other 7th place finisher is gonna be TILDE. He ends up getting a win on Anathema before losing to PLOOPY in a Game 5 set, and I do think that TILDE is pretty good at the Game & Watch matchup, but it is an extremely difficult one. The second you get hit, that disadvantage at offstage especially is really difficult, but you also hit Game & Watch incredibly hard. You only need 1 or 2 interactions to secure the stock, especially when you have the damage output of TILDE, but doesn't end up working this time around. Beats Deathspade in a Game 5 set to get into that top 8, and once in the top 8, he ends up losing to Luis in another Game 5. So both of the players that he ended up losing to at this event, he takes to Game 5. TILDE is obviously a very impressive player. We've seen him go super far at a ton of big events. And full bias, he's one of my favorite players to watch, so I hope he continues to do it. In 5th place, you're going to have PEABNUT and Capitancito. Starting off with PEABNUT, he's going to end up getting wins on Rocky and Capitancito to get into that top 8, but once in the top 8, he honestly has 2 pretty terrible draws in Muteace and Luis. Versus Muteace, he is down 6-1, and versus Luis, he is down 3. And I also think Palutena just does extremely well into Mega Man. I'm honestly not super sure how good the Mega Man Peach matchup is for either character, but I know Muteace is evidently very good at it, having a 6-1 record on the best Mega Man player in the world. And yes, PEABNUT is the best Mega Man player in the world. We've talked about it at pretty much every event he goes to, but he's just over and over again solidifying that, yeah, I'm just clearly better than everyone else at this character. I would even regard him over the Kameme Mega Man at this point. He's just so incredible, and I honestly think he's just going to continue getting better as Mega Man gets pushed further and further, and I honestly can't wait. The other 5th place finisher is going to be Capitancito. He's going to get wins on Blue Striker and Gilhue before falling to PEABNUT. Then he beats Lima to get into the top 8, as well as getting a nice win over BUANDON before falling to Ploopy. And Game & Watch is definitely a tough draw for me, Gunner. You just really don't get to make that utilization out of Charge Shot, or honestly half of the character's kit, just because Bucket is really annoying. And also Game & Watch is just an amazing character. I mentioned at the start, but Capitancito, also definitely the best Mii Gunner player in the world. I really hope that we get to see more of this player, because he has been attending a lot more stuff in 2024, and he's honestly been doing incredible. 5th place at Level of Expo, 25th at Low Tide, as well at Gommel. I feel like if we can consistently have him traveling out, he's just going to continue leveling up. He does have that experience versus Sonics at home, which is nice, but the average level of play in America is just really high, and I think you can clearly see Capitancito benefiting from it, because it feels like every event this guy goes to, he's just getting better and better. In 4th place, you got Ploopy. 3rd place, LukeWarm. Ploopy's going to pick up wins on Skin of the Poo, BUANDON, and TILDE to get into that top 8 through the winner's side. He ends up losing to LukeWarm in a 3-1, beats Capitancito in a 3-1, but then loses to Luis in a 3-1. And I do think that Palutena does well into Game & Watch. It's not an unwinnable matchup by any means. It's definitely not as good as it used to be, but I would say it is slightly in Paul's favor, just because the main flaw of Palutena, in my opinion, is that it's really difficult for her to secure the stock, just because everyone knows what she's fishing for. But versus Game & Watch, moves like dash attack, up tilt, back throw, they just become extremely more potent. You also have a move like back air just being very good versus the character you can't space around Game & Watch down air if your up airs are extremely precise, and Luis was just really comfortable in that matchup, ends up getting that win right there. But this run from Ploopy is extremely impressive. I do believe that this is his best run to date, but don't quote me on that one. I would regard him as the 2nd best Game & Watch player in America, and just massive props to him for the run. Editing proof block, I just forgot to mention that Ploopy actually managed to reverse 3-0 TILDE, so that win is even more impressive with that context. But you got to give the biggest props to the run of LukeWarm at this event, because he is easily the highlight of this again, getting 3rd place with an SPR of 5 with solo KROOL. This is Kirby Kid, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, and he was able to pick up wins on Shadow PR, Lima, and Luis to get into the top 8 through the winner's side, going Game 5 versus both Lima and Luis, as well as getting that really nice win over Ploopy before falling to Muteace and then losing his run back to Luis. And funnily enough, you have Luis going Palutena in the winner's side and then Rob in the loser's side, so that's a good adjustment from him right there, because Palutena definitely beats KROOL just as Bayo, definitely beats KROOL just as Game Watch, definitely beats KROOL. You're kind of noticing the trend at this point. There was so many unwinnable matchups, and I mean unwinnable matchups at this event that LukeWarm was able to pull out. What an impressive player. I pray that we get to see more of him because I love watching top tier KROOL gameplay. This is only his second big event of 2024 and only his fourth event of 2024, so hopefully we get to see a little bit more of him in the summer because he's the best KROOL player in the world and he just got third place at a B tier. Like, that's crazy. And our grand finalists are going to be Luis in second and Muteace in first. Starting off with Luis, he ends up getting a win on Nexus before losing to LukeWarm, like I mentioned. And even though Shu won the most sets in a row in the loser side, I do think that Luis has the most impressive losers run. He beats Shu herself to get into the top 8, and once in the top 8, he beats Tilde game 5, then 3-1s PEABNUT, PLOOPY, and LukeWarm, switching to the Rob for LukeWarm as well, which I absolutely love from Luis. You know what? Your main didn't work out in the first time around, so why not go with your secondary that is also very good in the matchup? Just having confidence in your other characters, I think, is extremely important if you're going to be playing multiple characters, and Luis is juggling a whole bunch of characters, even though Paulo is definitely the primary one, and gets into that grand finals where he ends up losing to Muteace. The Palutena doesn't work out, the Rob doesn't work out, so what's the natural progression after the Rob? Well, I am going to go Sephiroth. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't the Fox coming out instead, just considering that Muteace doesn't have an amazing record versus Light. I do think that Fox beats Peach and also just a better character than Sephiroth, but do you know what? I'm not going to question Luis's character choices at this event because he had an amazing run all the way to second place. It feels like every time this guy is at an event that just isn't a major, he's just one of the best players in the entire world. So hopefully soon he's going to be able to translate that to a major because he's just so talented. But Muteace ends up winning this event with no games dropped. 3-0'd every single player in his path, and he got wins on Deathspade, E-King, PEABNUT, LukeWarm, and Luis. Just pure dominance from him at this event. A perfect run, and I don't have a ton to say about it. We expected Muteace to do well at this event. He was the second seed coming in, but to win an event, even if it's a local without dropping a game, is very impressive, but to do it at a B tier is just absolutely insane. So shout out to Muteace for the run, and with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the sport. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!